everyone, this is Where We Land, a podcast bringing you stories of immigration and multicultural identity. I'm Luciana.
And I'm Claudia. We're sisters and we're originally from Peru.
Today we talk about the challenges of dating as an immigrant, culturally or because of the uncertainty of your future immigration status.
We also talk about condos, terrible drivers, and horses, both of the Peruvian Paso and the carriage drawing kind.
Here's our conversation.
Let's begin with a culture clash flashback. This is a culture clash that we experienced sometime in our past. And mine is condominio.
Oh, God.
You know exactly what story I'm going to tell. So when we were little, I have this memory of mom and dad having gathered all four of us on their bed, right? Mm-hmm. In their bedroom. Mm-hmm. So 6 of us in one bed. This was a very common thing that they did. And they were telling us about an upcoming family road trip that we were going to take to Lake Tahoe.
Yeah.
And dad was explaining where we were going to stay and what he had planned. And we were all like seamlessly switching between English and Spanish. And multiple people were talking at the same time, like we always do. And I didn't quite catch where we were staying.
Yeah.
I just understood that we weren't staying at a hotel. Like, I remember someone saying, oh, it's not like a hotel. This is going to be different. But I didn't understand where we were staying. So I asked, wait, if it's not a hotel, what is it? And someone answered, condominio in Spanish. Right. And I said, who's dominio?
Right.
And everyone burst out laughing because, of course, con in Spanish means with. And I thought dominio was just like a name of a person. Mm-hmm. So I thought we were staying with some random guy named Dominio that I had never heard of in my life. So I was asking, who is this person? But yeah, I think my dad looked at me with a little bit of shame and he was like, we need to teach these girls more Spanish. Yeah. This can't be, like, my daughter can't be asking who's Dominio. You know what I mean?
I remember that moment so well. And yes, that was like, how do you not know this word? It was
core memory ingrained in my brain of like, I don't know Spanish as well as I think I do.
Yeah. It impacted me too. I think it was a big moment. Mine is chaotic driving in Peru.
Please share.
When we were, like having grown up here, we obviously this is where we saw our parents drive. Our mother learned to drive here in the U.S. She really wasn't a driver in Peru.
Yeah.
And, it's just very normal. It was nothing that struck us, right? It was just like, this is what we know. And we would go back to Peru, but I think we'd spend a lot of time at the beach, so not really in the city, not really in traffic, not really in cars.
Yeah, we weren't being like lugged around in a car from one place to another. We would go to our grandparents' beach house and just spend the summer there.
So when we're going back to Peru, we're not really experiencing, what it is like to like drive and be driven around in Peru. When we moved back at age 12 and we get to experience going to school, like driving all over the city, I was just a little terrified.
Yeah,
for my
it was
life,
scary.
More than once, because like it's just the traffic lights are a suggestion.
Yeah,
stop signs are not even a suggestion. They're just blatantly ignored. It's just driving is chaotic. There's a lot of taxi drivers and there's not a formal. There is like bus drivers, but there's also informal bus drivers and just like someone who has their van and is like pretending to be a bus driver and just like no one wears a seatbelt. Why would you wear a seatbelt? Like, it's really chaotic. It just feels really hectic. And just people are aggressive drivers. And it was just a real, just like black and white difference from living in the US to going in Peru. And it's just, oh my God, like white knuckling a lot of rides to and from school.
Especially, I would have to say, I was the most scared because we would take a lot of taxis.
Yeah.
Because this is like pre-Uber, pre-all that stuff.
Yeah.
But so if our parents, for whatever reason, couldn't come get us from somewhere, there was like taxis we could call that were like safe.
Yeah.
And but you'd call and you didn't know, like the company was well regarded as safe, but you didn't know that doesn't mean just because the driver isn't going to kidnap you doesn't mean he's a good driver.
Right.
You know?
No.
And people were doing like, we're going as fast as they wanted to go. And they were like, no one was signaling. Everyone's like, I'm weaving in and out. If I see an open space, I'm going to take it. These people were like F1 drivers. If I see an open gap, I'm going for the gap.
Yes.
That's an F1 joke. If you know F1, you would be laughing right now. My sister doesn't watch F1, so she's not laughing.
Sorry.
But that was a really good joke.
Okay, noted. I will. Anyway, and like, let's also note, not everyone that is driving is necessarily in a car. There's like these little motorcycle cabs. There's
and you just
taxis,
yeah.
which are like these little boxcars that I don't think are even legal in the U.S. Like, you wouldn't be able to drive in a car like that. Like, it's just like there's no regulations that this car could pass. Like, it's just
like you can. There's like chassis that were built in like 1932, still operational and going 100 miles an hour down like the highway. Like, that is still, you still see that in Peru a lot of old cars, but they're still going, they're still pushing, they don't believe in anyone or anything. And it was scary. I do remember that took getting used to when we first moved back. And then when we became drivers eventually, that was another getting used to of like, oh, now I have to drive amongst these people. Mm-hmm. Now I'm not just scared of like being driven. Now I have to drive and like participate in like this rat race of like, no, but there's a hole here, so I'm gonna go and I'm gonna take it. And people are yelling at you and screaming at you because you're not going fast enough. And I'm like, that was a whole thing too. Scary stuff.
No, really chaotic. Anyway, scarred me a bit. Okay, now it's time for our topic of the week. This week, we want to talk about dating as an immigrant. When you're single in a new country, dating someone from it can be exciting, different. It can also be sometimes a little awkward, maybe a little daunting. There are many scenarios as an immigrant that one has to navigate. For example, if you're here on a visa that isn't necessarily permanent, or you haven't fully figured out how long you'll be here for, that's definitely going to play a role in your dating life. Also, new country, new set of rules. Dating in the U.S. can be a very different playing field from like altogether from what it was back home, certainly like for Peru, and for better or worse. Gender roles in countries and cultures are different. That will definitely come into account when dating. We get to see some reality TV shows exposing and exploring these differences. Like 90 Day Fiancé certainly shows a lot of differences, although that feels a bit more advanced because they're literally on their way to the altar.
Yeah.
But even something like Love is Blind comes to mind when mixing people from within the United States that grew up in traditional conservative homes versus more modern families, you get to see those differences kind of come up. Yeah. I also thought about some movies that explore intercultural dating when thinking about this topic. Ones that come to mind are 2 Days in Paris, this movie from the 90s called The Joy Luck Club. I don't know if you've seen it. I actually
it's a very cute movie.
It's so sweet. I actually only saw it a couple years ago, but it explored cultural conflict and relationships between first-generation Chinese American women. And one of my all-time favorite movies, Before Sunrise by Richard Linklater.
Yeah.
And what I particularly loved about the trilogy actually ending in Before Midnight is that obviously the whole exploration of the relationship, but how it changes through time, how the cultural differences that were once novel and attractive between the two characters, and then in the last movie seem to have become a challenging part of their marriage in some way.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really sad ending to that trilogy.
It is. But anyway, so let's get into it. Dating as an immigrant. And I have to start with what I think is one of the most defining things about that for me in my relationship with my now husband. And that was my visa situation. I was here on a student visa. Mm-hmm. As you know, it allowed me to work in the U.S. for a period of time after graduating. And, you know, when I first met my husband, I was like, you know, I was just graduating grad school, so I still had plenty of time to, work, and just like wasn't really thinking about that like end stage, because it could easily transition, or not easily, but it transitions, it can transition to a work visa, right? To a more permanent work visa.
Yeah.
So it wasn't really like top of mind for me. I was like, okay, I just got this job, I'm working, I met this guy, great, we're dating. But, as we start dating, I kind of tell him like, oh, yes, I'm currently on this visa. Then it'll switch out to this visa, blah, blah. And, a few months in, he kind of asked me a bit more about the specifics and was like, okay, there is this small chance, or 30% chance that maybe it doesn't. Like, it actually may not work out. But, like, whatever. He's like, oh, yeah, but okay, yeah, I've known people on that visa. Okay, like, it's, we're just not too hung up on it.
Yeah, and you're also just starting to date. So it's like, why would I stop seeing someone if, like, down the line this is a thing?
Yeah, So anyway, but, we were both very aware and just, like, going with it. And flash forward 8 months later, we find out that my visa is actually not going to happen. It will not continue. And it hit me like a pile of bricks. Like, I always knew there was this chance, but I was just like, no, like, I knew so many friends that it had happened for. And basically, to just like summarize, it's like the H-1B visa. I don't want to get too technical, but in a year where there are too many applicants, it goes into a lottery based on, certain countries, et cetera, et cetera. It's just too technical to get into it, but there were a lot of applicants that year. I did not get it. So we were hit with that news. I was literally panicking. Like, I was just like, oh my gosh. Now mind you, we still had many months. I want to say like 8 more months for me to stay in the country. It wasn't like I had to leave right away. Like, we had time. So
but still, it was time to to figure out what to do.
Time to figure out what to do, and like clock is ticking. And, like all of a sudden it's like, oh, you have to make a decision about your relationship, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I had to make a decision about so many other things, but my relationship was, I knew he was the one for me. I knew in my head, I was like, oh, like, this is my husband. We were 8 months in, so we hadn't had those conversations. We were, very committed to each other, very much in love. But, at 8 months, most people are like, let's get married,
Especially
like,
people in their 20s. People in their 20s, 8 months in, aren't really having those like long-term conversations.
Right. Yeah. I was 30 at the time, but still, like, yeah. So it was really, really hard to navigate. It was really tricky. I didn't really, like, I just felt like I didn't have a lot of, options into like how I can keep this relationship going. I was very like willing to do long distance. He had a job that was really not transferable anywhere else. And we just had to have these harder conversations about like, well, do we think that, this is worth fighting for? Do we want to stay together? Is this something? And luckily, we were both like, yeah, no, I think this is it. But I mean, it was really, really hard in the moment leading up to those conversations. I was low-key panicking about like, not only what am I going to do with like my relationship, but like what does the rest of my life look like?
I think it also is just very much dependent on timing, whether that experience is going to be a positive or a negative. Like, I think when you are at that crossroads of an immigration process where like all of a sudden you get a decision from the immigration process that moves your life into a direction that you weren't planning, that forces you to reevaluate everything. And of course, if you're in a relationship, that's going to come straight into your relationship of like, well, okay, now you have to have all these conversations because this is happening. Yeah. And luckily for you, you were 8 months in, because even if maybe you are with the right guy, but if you're only a month in,
right,
those conversations aren't really happening. It's very easy for two people to be just like, well, too bad. This came at the wrong time. this is it, I guess.
Yeah. And to be honest, even though we were like, okay, 8 months in, it wasn't like, okay, sure, let's get married. No, hard conversations were had. It was tricky.
It's a process to figure it out.
It was a process. It wasn't just like a fairy tale. But like, since it worked out in the end, I think we both, my husband and I, think about that time as just like a fond time, and like it turned into something beautiful. But whew, we went through it.
Yeah.
It was rough.
I think it's also tricky in those types of situations. I think it's also tricky when you're an immigrant and you're on a work visa. Most work visas have some kind of pathway to green card, residency, citizenship, but those are very dependent on a lot of things happening beforehand. So for the most part, everyone that is working here on a visa is here technically temporarily, right? Even if 10 years in, then they eventually they become citizens or whatever. In the moment, you don't know that that's going to happen. In the moment, you're on a visa that lasts a year or that lasts 3 years and you keep updating it. And every 3 years, you get a new one. Every 3 years, you get a new one, or every year or 5 years, whatever your program is, right? But at the moment, it's technically temporary. Technically, I'm only here for 3 years. And in 3 years, we'll see what happens. So I think it's tricky to navigate relationships when that is your reality.
Yeah.
Of like, technically, I'm here temporarily. You want to be in a relationship with me?
I know.
And it's also hard to communicate all this information and all the technicalities and all the legalities to your partner. Like, at what point, at what stage am I supposed to communicate all this?
I know. I mean, like, with my husband, you know, it was like very organic. Like, oh, I'm here on a student visa. I'm allowed to work for like X amount of time. I mean, I was real anxious leading up to the date where I would find out. I was insanely anxious. And I did like throw it on my then boyfriend. And I think he was really anxious. Like, we were in it. We were really committed.
Like in the trenches together.
I think he even told his parents, I'm pretty sure his parents were aware of that this was happening. Like, it was a serious relationship.
Yeah.
And we were at that stage. And also, like, we're not like in our early 20s just dating, like, right? Like, we were kind of both like, hey, we're getting to that place where, you know, we want to be in, like, it was the right time. But yeah, it's, rough. It's rough. That is, navigating that is just one of the things, right? There's just one of the things
to look forward to.
Yeah.
If you ever choose to immigrate. The other point that you touched on was the cultural differences that you can find dating when you're an immigrant. And that is something I have a little more experience with. I don't have experience with the like, visa situation coming to a head inside a relationship. But I do have experience with the cultural differences. And there's a couple that I would like to share because I think they really highlight what we mean with like cultural differences in dating. So the first one is, remember, I was living in Madrid in the 2010s. And I remember I had just arrived. I was going out with girlfriends a lot and meeting guys, of course, open to dating. And I remember at like clubs we would go to or nice bars we would go to, guys would offer to buy you a drink, you know, like they do. I think this is pretty universal. And a friend comes up to me, one of the girls that I would hang out with, and she's told me, hey, FYI, if a guy buys you a drink here and you accept, it means you're open to going home with him. That's like that means that's a possibility. Accepting the drink means that is a possibility. What? It's not like you have to or anything. But if you didn't, it would be considered a little rude. Like, oh, she does that. She's one of those girls that accepts drinks and doesn't go home with you. And I was like,
for a drink?
Oh my God, this is like, what? I was very shocked because in Peru, our culture is very much, it's very,
like a friend could buy you a drink with no.
Yes, but in Peru also it's a little patriarchal, so it's very much old school and like the guy will pay for everything, the guy will do everything, the guy will open the door and pick you up and take you home and
at least that's how it was. I wonder if it's changed. Maybe it's changed a little bit.
Yeah, at least that's how it was in the 2010s. You know?
Yeah, for sure.
So I was very shocked because in Peru, accepting a drink from a guy just means you can stand near me. Like, I will tolerate your presence near me
Right,
because
right.
you bought me this drink. And you can talk to me and I may respond or I may not. But like, that's what buying me a drink gets you in Peru. It's like, you can stand near me and I will listen to what you have to say.
Yeah.
But if I don't like what you're saying, I will leave and take my drink with me. Thank you very much.
Right. Yeah.
But in
I'm
Madrid,
shocked.
Yeah.
That was like.
I was very shocked
wonder-
by that. And so from then on, I was like, I'm not taking drinks from no one because I don't want to like, yeah.
Was this friend from Spain? She was a local.
Yes, she was from Spain. Yeah.
Huh.
This was the local information. Maybe it was only in that part of Spain. Maybe it was only in these types of bars and clubs that we were going to. Maybe it was a certain. I'm open to thinking that maybe that was a subculture.
Right.
But this is the people I was hanging out with, and if this is their understanding,
Right.
hey,
You're like, well,
I'm gonna
need
follow
to-
the local rules, man, because I don't want to end up in a situation where I'm
Right.
getting
Am I
yelled
signing
at by a drunk
contracts
dude.
by accepting this?
Yes, exactly. And then the other cultural dating mishap that I've run into is that, I think I've told you about this one. So in New York, I was going on a date. This was a first date with a guy from Hinge.
Uh-huh.
And so it's a first date from Hinge. So this is a complete stranger, right?
Right.
I've never seen
Yeah.
your face. And we're texting and he's really nice. He like sends me the place that where the reservation is. And he lets me know that a car is going to come pick me up at 7.
Oh
And
my
so
gosh.
he'd like my address.
Ooh.
And I was like,
Mm.
that sounds like a lot.
That
That sounds like a lot.
I don't
for
want to give a stranger my address.
First of all, number one, safety. As a woman, the first thing that pops into your head is like
Also,
safety.
sending a card for you. I mean, like,
Okay, so this is where
No.
I had conflicting feelings, right? Because I
Yes,
was like,
yes.
my first initial reaction was, this is too much. Like, I'm the type of girl that on a first date from Hinge, like on a first date with a person I've never met before, I'm paying for my stuff, you're paying for your stuff, because we don't know what we're getting into. You don't even know if you like me. You don't even know if you like me. Like, what are you doing? Why would you pay if you don't even know? You've never seen my face.
I mean, I guess, like, look, if a guy wants to buy you, I don't find that, I don't think, I mean, sure, that's nice, but I think that, like,
I wouldn't
one
be
thing is for a
opposed.
guy to buy you a drink or, like, pay for a couple of drinks. Another is to send you a car. And then I think about, like, oh my God, are we just, like, knocking chivalry down? Like, but I don't want to give a guy my address.
No, and also, like,
It's
what
a
I'm
bit-
saying is,
also
what I'm saying is
it-
that
I
on a
don't
first
know.
date, for a first date with someone that you've never met before,
Yeah. No.
it's too much in the sense,
too
just
much.
like it's too much if on a first date, I don't care if we've been talking for 30 minutes. If you start telling me, oh my God, you're amazing, I'm like,
Oh,
you're
yeah.
lying because you don't
Yeah.
know me. I could be a
Yes,
serial killer. You don't know. I could be a bitch. Your next toxic ex-girlfriend. You literally don't know.
Yeah.
Telling me I'm amazing, showering me
Yeah.
with praise too excessively on a first date
Yeah.
is a bit of a red flag. So for me, the physical equivalent of that is sending a car to pick me up.
Yeah, no,
when
that
I'm
is-
an
that's like-
unknown person. I'm
Yeah.
an unknown person. Why are you spending your money sending me a car when you don't even know? You don't even know me.
Also, the assuming, like, oh, there will be a car for you. Like, bye. What happened?
Yeah.
I'm so curious.
Okay,
What happened?
so cut to I was feeling. I said, "Oh no, thank you." I made like I think I lied a little because I was like, "Oh no, thank you. That's okay. I'm not gonna." I told him like I wasn't gonna be I wasn't going from my house. I lied and said I was like going straight from work. I don't go to an office, guys. I lied and said, "Oh, I'm just gonna go pop in straight from work."
I'm
So-
surprised you're like, all right, still down for it. Because you're
Wait,
like, a
no,
bit
I
more up for it.
rejected the car. But I thought, once again, I've never seen his face. I've never met him.
Right,
What
right.
if this is, we don't know.
Maybe
And
he just had
then-
a moment of
then-
weirdness. Mhm.
Before the date, so I told some friends about this. I was hanging out with some girlfriends and I shared this information. I told them how I was weirded out a bit and I
Yeah.
didn't know what to make of it. And I got mixed reactions. Like there was,
Wow.
yes, because there was one girl in the group who was like, oh yeah, some guys do that here. Like her assessment of the situation was
Oof,
that
I
in
don't-
New York, there are some guys that think that's really nice to do. And there's girls that really like that. And that is like, she painted the picture of like, this is a common thing. Like in the toolbox of things a guy can do, of like opening doors, paying for drinks, sending a car is one of those very well-known gestures. And I was like, oh, okay, so it's not that creepy, but still, I don't know if it's a gesture I want to accept. I'm glad I didn't accept it. But it's good to know that it's a well-known tool that guys use. And then one of the girls in the group was like, I don't go out with guys unless they send me a car. Like, you want to get me somewhere? Send me a car. And I was like, oh, this is a thing here. This is a thing in the city. Got it. Understood.
Before my time, I never met anyone who would send me a car.
Well, there weren't Ubers when you were dating, were there? Were there Ubers? Or like,
oh my God,
those
what am I on 100?
I don't remember when they came out.
For the listener, I am not 100.
She's my older sister. What can I say?
Why do you? Okay.
Okay, so it's a new thing, I guess, that guys send cars.
Like, look, a part of me was like, oh my gosh, am I just knocking down on chivalry? Like, what if a guy is genuine? Like, but like,
what if it's a nice thing to do?
Like, if it's a nice thing to do, but I would be just like, because of the stranger part. It's not like someone that you like, I don't know, met at a bar or like met out, who you got to speak to for a bit. Like maybe you were at a dinner party, you met him, so you had a chat. And then like, okay, and he's someone's friend or someone, I don't know. And then they offer to send you a car. It feels kind of like a weird flex to me.
Yeah, I think
first, but I don't know. Am I jaded? I don't know.
I think it would be a nice gesture, and I would take it as a nice gesture if we were dating. If this was like our third date. If this was a third date and you're like, hey, I'm sending you a car, I'd be like, oh, that's nice. Thank you.
Exactly.
But if I'm a complete stranger and you're like, give me your address, bitch, I want to send you a car. I'm like, hell no.
Exactly. I think that is the difference. That those small differences that really do matter.
Well, yes, the cultural divide is strong. It's tough. But I think it's also the fun part. And this is where I get kind of sappy, but like it's also the fun part of like discovering, well, how different are you? And as long as there's like explanation and understanding and you vibe with why they're doing the things they're doing, it's like, oh, okay. Because I have had the experience where a guy has done something that has thrown me a little off guard. But then when they explained the reasoning behind it, I was like, oh, that's actually kind of nice. And the example I'm thinking of specifically was a Norwegian guy asked me out, and the way he asked me out was what caught me off guard. Because this was like in my late 20s when you're like, going out with someone isn't that big of a deal. Like someone asking you out isn't a big deal when you're like 28. You're like, they're just, sup, you want to go to grab dinner Thursday? And you're like, yeah, I'm hungry, feed me, let's go. Like, you're not thinking twice about it. Like, it's just a date. You're not my boyfriend, like whatever.
Right.
So you're just saying yes to dates left and right as long as you think the guy's cute. So here's me with my laid back attitude towards dating. And then there's this guy who comes, like I met him on campus randomly. We had a really nice conversation, ended up chatting like the afternoon away. And then bye, had to leave, had to run, go meet up with my friends. He left wherever. And then I get like this, remember Facebook inbox?
Yeah.
So that's how old I am. I got a Facebook inbox from this guy that I had just met a few days ago. And it was written like a letter. It was like, Dear Claudia, I don't know if you remember me. We met at XYZ. We chatted, blah, 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 da, 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 da. I hope you're doing well. Da, 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 da. I'm like, this is how he does friendship. He's a writer. Right. He's a poet. Yes. And then third paragraph in, he's like, so this Saturday, my plan is to do XYZ. I'm going to this place. It's really nice. It has this. And he describes like the Saturday that he's going to have. And then at the end, he asked me if I want to join him and do all those, like he listed all the activities. He told me exactly where he was going to go, what he was going to be doing, what we were going to be eating and drinking, like to spend the afternoon together. Did I want to come? And it wasn't for this Saturday. It was for the following week. And I was like, I feel like
okay,
a royal man has written to me in like pen and paper and send me correspondence, and I have to reply, yes, I will accept. Check yes. You know,
Right.
it was very, very
If
different.
this guy would offer to send you a car, that would be on brand. Like,
I would be like,
but
this
he
is what
would
he
send you a
does.
carriage,
A horse
right?
and carriage, baby. I would
Right.
take nothing less.
Right.
But yeah, so it felt very, especially for my mindset at the time, as I explained, I was like, let's go. Want to get a beer? Yeah, sure, I'll go. I'll go home with you. Sure. That was a bit too much. Anyway, but from my mindset at the time, it was extremely formal and almost like a little, like at arm's length. I'm like,
Yeah.
is this too formal? Is this guy kind of stiff? And I went on the date and he was great. And in the date, he explained, oh, well, in Norway, it's like presumptuous to like ask you out so soon because we're strangers. We're not even in the same friend group. We don't really know each other. So it's like presumptuous to like ask for your time with so little anticipation.
Right.
And it's, since you don't know me, it's polite to like say exactly what we're going to do on the date.
Very respectful. I like it.
I liked it. I was like, where are these Norwegian men?
Yeah.
Where are they? Where can I find them? Have they come to New York? If you're here, send me a letter. Let's move on to our current faves. This is a segment where we share something either Peruvian or American that we're currently loving, craving, or missing. I'm going to go first because my current fave is Peruvian Paso horses.
Oh my gosh.
I miss them.
Really?
Yes. It's okay. So for the non-Peruvians out there, a Peruvian Paso horse is a breed of horses with a famously smooth ride. So you're not bouncing up and
Beautiful
down
horses.
when you're in them. You're very steady. They walk and you're just like smooth riding,
Very
right?
elegantly. They walk just
Very elegant. Oh, long neck, very beautiful creatures. They have so a 4-beat step, which means they call it pasoyano, which means every foot comes down at a different time. So it's not like 2 and 2 like a gallop. It's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's what makes the ride so smooth. And they are show horses. Like there's competitions all over Peru where the horses can compete, and their trainers called chalanes walk them around, and they judge them based on like how tall and like elegant their necks are, how their gait. They judge just everything, all the lines of the horse, the way the horse moves, everything. And this, I've been like thinking about them and missing them, and I'm like, why do I miss them? Because I don't miss riding them. Not really.
Yeah.
Because we, as kids especially, I would ride a lot. We would go on cabalgatas, which are just like these
long horse rides,
like 2-3 hour horse rides with like a group of chalanes. We would all go together. And I would do that a lot as a kid, mainly because of our dad. He was very into them. This was one of his like passion. Nerdy things, that he loved so much.
It was like his literal passion, yeah.
Exactly. So yeah, I've been wanting to see them. Like I've been literally, I went on YouTube and I was like, oh, I wonder if you can find
really?
And you can
of course
on YouTube.
You can. Of course.
There's like Peruvian Paso horses. They record everything, so you can see them. So if you're ever curious, you can just look it up on YouTube. But I'm like, I just miss seeing them. I want to pet them. I want to see like an elegant walk. I'm missing that vibe a little.
Oh wow! I mean, it was always so fun to go see them. So.
And also, I'm guessing there must be like some underlying thing of like, oh, it reminds me of my dad.
Yeah, and like a dad home. Like I think going to all those competitions. I mean, it was really fun. It's always like a very festive environment. So, okay, mine is cremolada de maracuyá. So good.
Oh my God. When you said cremolada, I was like, yes, except.
And I'm talking about the cremolada in the Las Delicias in our home.
Oh, of course. Of course. Our beach town.
Yeah.
So it's the best cremolada.
For the listeners, people that aren't familiar with it, this doesn't even like, okay, when I say shaved ice, no,
it's not
shaved ice. But that is, I think, the closest thing to
resemblance,
it. Yeah, because this is like, okay, imagine just like, shaved ice, I guess, with no flavoring. And it's made with like real fruit. Like it is the fruit juice within the ice. And it's natural. Oh, it's so good. It is. And maracuya is passion fruit. So shaved ice of passion fruit, I guess, would be the best way I could describe it. But really, it doesn't do it justice. It is delicious. It is sweet and like a little bit sour. And it is just a little cup of goodness in the summer.
You know why I think shaved ice doesn't do it justice? Because
shaved ice is like artificial flavors to me.
Not only that, like shaved ice is literally shaved ice, and then you pour like something on it, right? This is not, you don't pour anything.
No.
This is basically, you make a maracuya juice.
Yeah,
like
passion fruit juice.
Passion fruit juice. Like just squeeze the passion fruit, put it in the blender, add sugar, and then you freeze it.
Yeah.
And then what you do is you like break up that block of ice that comes out, let it get a little slushy.
Yeah, just a little.
And then serve just a little, and then serve it with as if that were so the shaved ice is just the juice, the maracuya, like juice.
And they have multiple flavors. This woman that makes it out of her house sells it.
My favorite flavor is ciruela chilena.
I love the
Chilean
maracuya.
plums.
I love the chicha. I love the
Chilean
lemon.
plums.
If
you guys,
oh,
it's so good.
It's so good. Anyway, if you ever go to Peru, go to Las Delicias during the summer, January through March, and have a cremolada.
You say that as if it were so easy. So if you're ever in Peru, just take this other plane
to this really remote little beach town in the
where there's nothing really there except for these maracuyas.
Yeah.
There's nothing else on that beach. I think maybe a restaurant.
Worth it.
So having finished our conversation, how did this land for you?
This was fun. I feel pretty out of the dating game. As established, I'm 100. Dated before Uber even existed.
Married for 60 years, yes.
Right? Yeah. But I'm actually, after all of this back and forth, I'm really curious as to how younger generations are experiencing this. Because my guess is that there's a little bit less of a multicultural barriers, maybe more acceptance, maybe more openness to something different.
Yeah, I could see that.
That they're, they've been immersed and exposed to so much more diversity than we were, right? Yep. Especially we're talking about the US, the big cities, the coasts that have just this influx of immigrants from all over the world. So they're just, maybe just going to be less stunned by someone being so different.
Yeah, and also beyond the big cities, you have everyone's on TikTok, watching people from all over the world.
That was literally my second point is social media. They've gotten to even if they've never left the country, they've gotten to learn, see, just view different experiences and customs and gender roles and ideas and ways of life through their phones, through movies, through much more than we did because there's just more. There's just more content that's covering that. So I wonder if they're what would have shocked you and me dating in our 20s about meeting someone so different. So they're oh, wow. They're cool. Yeah, you're different. So, they're just more open. Yeah. I'm really curious. I would be really curious to speak with, the younger immigrants in the U.S. if they're even fazed by so much of the stuff.
Well, I think there's for sure more acceptance. But even if you're from the same culture, there is always this. I think the topic is so much fun about
it's fun. It's so fun.
Because even if you're from the same culture, dating is just fun.
Yeah.
And there's always interpretations. Even if you're both born and raised in the US, there's still all these conversations, for instance, around who's supposed to pay. And everyone has various interpretations about strong feelings about no, I will always pay, or you're supposed to pay, or we're always supposed to split it, or,
Yeah.
So I think, first of all, the topic is always fun, because dating is just fun. And then, yes, there are all these nuances to what behavior I'm expecting from a partner, I'm looking for in a partner, what the other person is looking for in me, and if those match or not. And of course, if you're dating someone from a different cultural background, there's just going to be more of those things.
Yeah, just dating someone really different.
Yeah, that you're constantly trying to interpret, trying to figure out what it is. And I think half the fun of dating is like you sitting around with your girlfriends being like, he said this. What does
Dishing,
that mean?
yeah.
Then we did this. I don't understand what he was trying to do. And then I said that, like, that's just so much fun.
It's so much
and
fun.
when you're an immigrant and you're dating in a foreign country and you're dating people different from you, it just becomes that much more fun, I think. That wraps it up for us today. Subscribe so you don't miss an episode, and check us out on Instagram at wherewelandpod. Hasta la vista, babies.
Ciao, ciao.